The lawyer's hands trembled as he opened the envelope, and Maya knew something was terribly wrong. She sat in the cramped office of Peterson and Associates, wearing the same black dress she'd worn to Aryan's funeral 2 years ago. It still fit. Grief had a way of shrinking everything: appetite, hope, the will to buy new clothes. "Mrs. Rahman, before I read this, I need you to understand." James Peterson removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Your husband left very specific instructions. This will was to be opened exactly 2 years after his death, not a day sooner." Maya's fingers tightened around her purse strap. "I don't understand. Aryan was a warehouse supervisor. He barely made $40,000 a year. What could possibly require?" "Please," James held up his hand. "Just listen." The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang unanswered. Maya watched the old lawyer unfold a document that looked nothing like the simple one-page will she'd expected. It was thick, legal, covered in seals and signatures. James cleared his throat and began reading. "I, Aryan Michael Harrison, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this to be my last will and testament." Maya blinked. "Harrison, his name was Aryan Rahman. We've been married for 5 years. I think I know my own husband's." "Mrs. Rahman," James looked at her with something that might have been pity. "Your husband's legal name was Aryan Michael Harrison. He was the sole heir and CEO of Harrison Industries." The words didn't make sense. They floated in the air like dust particles, refusing to settle into meaning. "Harrison Industries," Maya repeated slowly. "The Harrison Industries, the one with the building in Manhattan, the one that owns half the shipping ports on the East Coast." "The very same." Maya laughed. It came out sharp and brittle, like glass breaking. "That's insane. Aryan drove a 2008 Honda Civic. He clipped coupons. He used to get excited about buy one get one deals at the grocery store. You're telling me that man was a billionaire?" James slid a folder across the desk. "Net worth at the time of death, $4.7 billion. All of it, Mrs. Rahman, has been left to you." The room tilted. Maya gripped the armrest of her chair, convinced she was having some kind of stroke. A hallucination brought on by 2 years of grief and exhaustion and working double shifts at the diner just to keep the lights on in her tiny Brooklyn apartment. "This is a joke," she whispered. "This has to be a joke." "I assure you it is not." James pulled out another document. "However, there are conditions. Your husband was very specific." Of course there were conditions. Because apparently, even from the grave, the man she thought she knew was full of surprises. "To access the full inheritance, you must live in Harrison Manor for 6 months. You must attend all board meetings as the new majority shareholder. And you must," James paused, his face reddening, "you must not remarry for a period of 5 years." Maya's head was spinning. "Harrison Manor, where is that?" "Upper East Side, 12,000 square feet. Your husband grew up there." James hesitated. "His family still lives there." "Family?" Maya's voice cracked. "Aryan told me he was an orphan. He said his parents died when he was young. He said he had no one." "He lied." James said it simply, without judgment. "Aryan's mother, Victoria Harrison, is very much alive, as is his younger brother, Daniel, and his former fiancée, Natasha Cole, who has been contesting the estate since your husband's death." "Former fiancée." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. "He was engaged before me. For 3 years, the wedding was planned, venues booked, guest lists finalized." James shuffled papers uncomfortably. "Aryan called it off 2 weeks before the ceremony. He disappeared shortly after. The next record we have of him is his marriage certificate to you, filed in Brooklyn 18 months later." Maya stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. She walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass, staring down at the busy street below. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of believing she knew every detail about the man who slept beside her. His favorite food, butter chicken. His secret fear, thunderstorms. The way he hummed old Bollywood songs while doing dishes. The gentle way he touched her face every morning before leaving for work. All of it real, all of it true. And all of it wrapped around a lie, so massive she couldn't begin to comprehend it. Why? She didn't turn around. Why would he hide this from me? I don't know, James admitted. But he left you something else. Something he insisted I give you only in person, only after reading the will. Maya heard him open a drawer, heard the soft thud of something being placed on the desk. She turned. It was a letter, handwritten, her name on the envelope in Aryan's familiar scrawl. Maya walked back slowly, as if approaching something dangerous. Her fingers shook as she picked it up, feeling the weight of the paper, the slight bump of something else inside. I'll give you privacy, James said, standing. Take all the time you need. The door clicked shut behind him. Maya sank into the chair and opened the envelope. A small key fell out, silver, old-fashioned, attached to a chain delicate enough to be a necklace. She unfolded the letter. My darling Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm sorry. Sorry for the lies. Sorry for the secrets. Sorry for leaving you alone in a world I tried so hard to protect you from. I never told you who I really was because I wanted you to love the man, not the money. And you did. God, you did. You loved me when I had nothing to offer but myself, and that was the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. But now you need to know the truth, not just about me, but about my family, about why I left, about the danger that might come for you now that I'm gone. The key around your neck opens a safe in my childhood bedroom. 3rd floor, east wing, behind the painting of the lighthouse. Inside, you'll find everything, documents, evidence, recordings. Things that will explain why I ran. Things that will help you survive what's coming. Because they will come for you, Maya. My mother, my brother, Natasha. They'll smile and welcome you and try to destroy you from the inside. Trust no one in that house. No one. But don't run. Don't hide. You're stronger than you know. I saw it the first day we met, when you stood up to that drunk customer at the diner who was harassing the waitress. You didn't even flinch. You just looked at him with those fierce eyes and told him to leave or you'd make him leave. That's when I knew. That's when I fell. Fight for what's yours, my love. Fight for the truth. Fight for us. And when you find out what really happened to me, because it wasn't an accident, Maya, it wasn't make them pay. I love you. I loved you from the first moment. I'll love you long after the last. Yours eternally. Aryan. Maya read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully, slipped it back into the envelope, and fastened the key around her neck. Her hands had stopped shaking. Something cold and hard was settling in her chest, replacing the grief, replacing the confusion. It wasn't an accident. Her husband, the billionaire CEO who had pretended to be a warehouse supervisor, who had loved her with a gentleness that still made her ache, had been murdered. And his killers were waiting for her in a mansion on the Upper East Side. Maya stood, smoothed her dress, and opened the door. James looked up from his desk, startled by the change in her expression. When can I move in? Maya asked. Excuse me. Harrison Manor. When can I move in? James blinked. The family has been notified of the will reading. They're expecting you tomorrow evening for dinner. But Mrs. Rahman, I feel I should warn you. Don't. Maya's voice was steady now, calm, dangerous. Don't warn me, don't prepare me, just tell me one thing. What's that? Did they know? His family? Did they know where he was all those years? James was quiet for a long moment. Victoria Harrison hired private investigators for 2 years after Aryan disappeared. She never found him. He paused. Or so she claimed. Maya nodded slowly. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. I'll see myself out. She was at the door when his voice stopped her. Mrs. Rahman, your husband was my client for 15 years. Before he left, before he became Aryan Rahman, he was the best man I ever knew. Whatever you find in that house, whatever they tell you about him, remember that. Remember who he really was. Maya turned, and for just a moment her mask slipped. Her eyes glistened. I will, she said softly. I promise. The cab ride to Brooklyn felt longer than usual. Maya watched the city blur past the window, her mind racing through 5 years of memories, searching for signs she'd missed. The way Aryan always paid in cash, the way he never talked about his childhood, the way he sometimes stared at expensive cars with a strange, sad expression that she'd mistaken for longing, but now realized might have been recognition. The way he'd always insisted they stay off social media. No Facebook, no Instagram, no photos posted anywhere public. For privacy, he'd said, smiling that crooked smile she loved. I just want you all to myself. She'd found it romantic. Now she understood it was survival. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. Maya answered. Mrs. Rahman, a woman's voice, smooth, cold, like silk wrapped around ice. This is Victoria Harrison, Aryan's mother. Maya's grip tightened on the phone. Mrs. Harrison. I understand you'll be joining us tomorrow evening. I wanted to personally welcome you to the family. A pause that lasted just a beat too long. We have so much to discuss. I'm sure we do. The driver will pick you up at 6. Please pack for an extended stay. The manor has everything you could possibly need. That's very generous. It's the least we can do for Aryan's widow. The word dripped with something Maya couldn't quite identify. Contempt, suspicion, amusement. I look forward to meeting you, Mrs. Harrison. Oh, I'm certain you do. Goodbye, dear. The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, then slipped it back into her purse. Her fingers brushed against the envelope containing Aryan's letter. Trust no one in that house. The cab pulled up to her building, a crumbling brownstone in a neighborhood that had been up and coming for 15 years. She climbed 4 flights of stairs, unlocked 3 separate locks, and stepped into the apartment that had been her whole world for the past 5 years. 400 square feet, a kitchen the size of a closet, a bedroom that barely fit the queen-sized bed Aryan had insisted on buying, even though it meant they had to shimmy sideways to reach the bathroom. A man needs space to hold his wife properly, he'd said, pulling her onto the mattress, making her laugh. Maya walked to the window, looking out at the fire escape where they used to sit on summer nights, sharing cheap wine and dreams of the future. He'd given all of this up, the billions, the mansions, the power. For her. And someone had killed him for it. Maya turned to the small closet and began to pack. The Harrison Manor looked exactly like the kind of place that held dark secrets and beautiful monsters. Maya stepped out of the black sedan that had arrived precisely at 6, staring up at a limestone facade that seemed to go on forever. Ionic columns flanked the entrance. Gargoyles leered from the roofline. The windows, dozens of them, reflected the dying sunlight like cold, watchful eyes. The driver, a silent man in his 50s, who had answered all of Maya's questions with monosyllables, retrieved her 2 small suitcases from the trunk. This way, ma'am. The front doors were already opening. Maya straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and walked toward whatever was waiting. The foyer alone was larger than her entire apartment. Marble floors, a chandelier that probably cost more than she'd made in her entire life, a sweeping staircase that curved up to shadows and secrets. And at the center of it all, like a spider in an elegant web, stood Victoria Harrison. She was tall, silver-haired, dressed in a black dress that managed to be both mourning and high fashion simultaneously. Her face was beautiful in that preserved way of women who had the best surgeons and the coldest hearts. Maya, Victoria glided forward, taking both of Maya's hands in her own. Her grip was cool and dry. At last, I've waited so long to meet the woman who stole my son's heart. Mrs. Harrison, Maya held her gaze. Thank you for having me. Call me Victoria, please. We're family now, after all. The smile didn't reach her eyes. Come, everyone is waiting in the drawing room. Everyone. Maya followed Victoria through a maze of hallways lined with paintings and sculptures that probably belonged in museums. Each step echoed on the marble, announcing her presence to the house like a warning bell. The drawing room was warm with firelight and rich with the smell of old money. 2 people were already there. The man stood as Maya entered. He was younger than Aryan would be now, maybe 28 or 29, with the same dark hair and sharp jaw, but none of Aryan's warmth. His eyes were calculating, assessing, like a predator sizing up prey. Daniel Harrison, he extended his hand. Aryan's brother, it's interesting to finally meet you. Maya shook it. His grip was too tight, a dominance play. She didn't flinch. I'm sure it is, she said evenly. The woman on the sofa didn't stand. She was stunningly beautiful, blonde hair cascading over bare shoulders, a red dress that left little to imagination, and a smile that could cut glass. Natasha Cole. She lifted a champagne flute in mock salute. The woman your husband was supposed to marry. Natasha, Victoria's voice carried a warning. We discussed this. I'm just stating facts, Vic. Natasha sipped her champagne, eyes never leaving Maya's face. No need to pretend. We all know why she's here. Maya walked further into the room, refusing to be cornered by the door. And why is that, Miss Cole? Please, I'd love to hear your theory. Natasha's smile flickered. She hadn't expected pushback. Money, obviously. You somehow convinced Aryan to marry you, hide his fortune, and leave everything to you when he died. Quite the long con. Natasha, Daniel said sharply. A 5-year con, Maya replied calmly. While he worked as a warehouse supervisor and I pulled double shifts at a diner. While we lived in a 400-square-foot apartment and clipped coupons. While I held him through nightmares, he never explained and loved him without knowing he had a penny to his name. She paused. You're right. I'm clearly a criminal mastermind. The room went silent. Victoria's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Something like surprise, maybe even respect. Dinner, she announced smoothly, is served. The dining room table could have seated 30. Only 4 places were set, clustered at one end, forcing an intimacy that felt more like an interrogation. Maya sat across from Daniel, with Victoria at the head and Natasha on the other side. The first course arrived, some kind of delicate soup that probably had a French name Maya couldn't pronounce. So, Victoria began, delicately lifting her spoon. Tell us about yourself, Maya. Aryan was always so, secretive about his life after he left. There's not much to tell. I grew up in Queens, worked my way through community college, met Aryan at the diner where I was waitressing. Maya tasted the soup. Delicious. He came in every day for 3 months before he finally asked me out. How romantic, Natasha muttered. It was actually. Maya met her eyes. He was shy, sweet. He used to leave ridiculously big tips even though I could tell he couldn't really afford them. When I finally agreed to dinner, he took me to this tiny Italian place in Brooklyn. Candles on the table, checkered tablecloths. He was so nervous he knocked over his water glass twice. Daniel's jaw tightened. That doesn't sound like my brother. Then you didn't know your brother. The words hung in the air like a challenge. I knew him for 25 years, Daniel said quietly. You knew him for 5. Don't pretend. I knew the man he chose to be. Maya set down her spoon. You knew the man your family forced him to be. Those are very different people. Victoria's hand came down on the table. Not hard, just enough. Enough, her voice was ice. We are not here to fight. We are here to welcome Maya into the family and discuss the transition of the estate. She turned to Maya. As you know, the will requires you to live here for 6 months. We've prepared the East Wing for you. You'll have complete privacy. The East Wing, 3rd floor, where Aryan's childhood bedroom was. Where the safe was hidden. That's very generous, Maya said. There is, however, one small matter. Victoria dabbed her lips with a napkin. The board meeting next week. You'll be introduced as the new majority shareholder. Some members may question your qualifications. I'm sure they will. It might be wise to let Daniel handle the actual business operations. In an advisory capacity, of course, until you're more familiar with how things work. Maya smiled. It was not a friendly smile. I appreciate the concern, Victoria, but I managed a diner with 15 employees, a budget tighter than your facelift, and customers who made your worst board members look like angels. I think I can handle a few suits with spreadsheets. Daniel choked on his wine. Natasha stared. Victoria's eyes narrowed, just for a second before her mask slipped back into place. Well, she said softly, this is going to be interesting. After dinner, Maya claimed exhaustion and asked to be shown to her room. A maid, young, nervous, carefully avoiding eye contact, led her through the East Wing to a suite larger than her entire Brooklyn apartment. 4-poster bed. Private bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool. A sitting room with a fireplace. And windows overlooking a garden that stretched into darkness. Is there anything else you need, ma'am? No, thank you. The maid hesitated at the door. Ma'am, I'm Jenny. I worked here when Mr. Aryan was young. If you need anything at all, just ask for me. Something in her voice made Maya pause. Did you know him well? Jenny's eyes flickered to the hallway, checking for listeners. He was kind, different from the others. He used to sneak into the kitchen and help me with dishes when he thought no one was watching. She swallowed. I was sorry to hear what happened to him. What do you think happened to him? Jenny's face went pale. I should go. Good night, ma'am. She was gone before Maya could ask anything else. Maya locked the door all 3 locks and began to explore. The bedroom was clearly a guest room, decorated in impersonal elegance. But Victoria had said this was the East Wing. Aryan's childhood bedroom had to be nearby. She waited until midnight, until the house had gone quiet and the hallways were dark. Then she crept out, moving silently past closed doors, searching for the room where her dead husband's secrets were waiting. 3rd floor, East Wing, behind the painting of the lighthouse. She found the staircase, climbed. The 3rd floor was different, dustier. The portraits on the walls were older, the furniture draped in white sheets like ghosts frozen mid-haunt. Maya counted doors, checked paintings. And there it was. A lighthouse on a stormy sea, waves crashing against rocks, a single light burning against the darkness. Maya's fingers trembled as she lifted the painting from the wall. Behind it was a safe, old, heavy, with a keyhole in the center. She pulled the chain from around her neck, the silver key Aryan had left her. It fit perfectly. The safe door swung open with a soft click. Inside were folders, dozens of them, thick with documents. And on top of them all, a photograph. Maya lifted it into the moonlight streaming through the window. It was Aryan, younger, maybe 22 or 23. He was standing on what looked like a yacht deck, laughing at something off camera. But he wasn't alone. Standing next to him, arm wrapped around his waist, was Natasha Cole. And standing behind them both, hand resting on Aryan's shoulder in a gesture that looked almost threatening, was a man Maya didn't recognize. A man with cold eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. A man who had written something on the back of the photo. Maya turned it over. The blood drained from her face. 3 words, written in red ink that had faded to brown over the years. UOME. Behind her, a floorboard creaked. Maya spun around. Daniel Harrison stood in the doorway, watching her with eyes that gleamed in the darkness. "Find anything interesting?" he asked softly. And somewhere in the house, a clock began to strike 12. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs, but she didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't shove the photograph behind her back like a guilty child. Instead, she held it up. "Who is this man?" Daniel stepped into the room, his footsteps silent on the dusty floor. Moonlight cut across his face, turning his features sharp and strange. "You're asking the wrong questions, Maya." "Then tell me the right ones." He stopped 3 feet away, close enough to touch, close enough to threaten. "The right question is, why are you snooping through a dead man's belongings at midnight? The right question is, what exactly did my brother tell you before he died? The right question is," he leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper, "who sent you?" Maya laughed. It surprised them both. "Who sent me? Your brother sent me. From the grave, apparently, with a key and a letter and instructions to trust no one in this house." She tilted her head. "Seems like solid advice so far." Something flickered in Daniel's eyes. Surprise, respect, she couldn't tell. Aryan always did have a flair for the dramatic. "Answer my question." Maya held up the photograph again. "Who is this man?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took the photo from her hand. He stared at it like he was looking at a ghost. "Marcus Webb," he said finally. "He was my father's business partner. They built Harrison Industries together, back when it was just a small shipping company in New Jersey." "Was." "He died 6 months before Aryan disappeared." Daniel handed the photo back. "Heart attack, very sudden, very convenient." Maya's blood chilled. "You think it wasn't natural?" "I think a lot of deaths in this family haven't been natural." Daniel's voice was flat, careful. "But I can't prove anything, and neither could Aryan." "Is that why he left?" "Aryan left because he found something. I don't know what, he never told me." Daniel's jaw tightened. "One day he was here, running board meetings, planning his wedding to Natasha. The next day he was gone. No note, no explanation, just gone." Maya studied his face, searching for lies. "And you never looked for him." "Of course I looked for him. He was my brother." For the first time, genuine emotion cracked through Daniel's mask. "I looked for 2 years, hired investigators, called in favors. Nothing. It was like he'd been erased from existence." "Your mother said she hired investigators too." Daniel's expression shuddered. "My mother says a lot of things." The implication hung heavy in the air. "You think she knew where he was?" "I think my mother knows everything that happens in this family, and I think she has secrets that would make your head spin." Daniel stepped back, putting distance between them. "I also think you're not as naive as you're pretending to be. No one walks into this house and starts poking around safes on their first night unless they're looking for something specific." "I'm looking for the truth about my husband's death." "His death," Daniel frowned. "He died in a car accident, brake failure on the highway." "That's what the police report said." "You don't believe it." Maya reached into the safe and pulled out a folder at random. She hadn't looked at any of them yet, but she trusted Aryan. Whatever was in here would be important. "My husband spent 5 years hiding from his own family. He married me under a fake name. He lived in poverty when he could have lived in palaces, and in his final letter he told me it wasn't an accident." She met Daniel's eyes. So no, I don't believe it. Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Something was shifting in his expression, calculation giving way to something that looked almost like hope. You really loved him, he said quietly. Didn't you? More than anything. Then we might be able to help each other. Daniel glanced toward the door, lowering his voice. Meet me in the garden tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., before the house wakes up. There's something you need to see. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. But right now, I'm the only person in this house who wants the same thing you do. Which is? The truth about what really happened to my brother. Daniel turned toward the door. And the chance to make the people responsible pay. He was gone before Maya could respond, disappearing into the shadows like he'd never been there at all. Maya stood alone in the dusty room, clutching a folder full of secrets and a photograph of a dead man with cold eyes. Sleep, she suspected, would not be coming tonight. She spent the remaining hours until dawn reading. The folders in the safe were organized meticulously, dates, names, transactions. Aryan had been building a case, piece by piece, for what looked like years before he disappeared. The picture that emerged made Maya's stomach turn. Harrison Industries wasn't just a shipping company. It was a front, a massive, sprawling front for money laundering operations that stretched across 3 continents. And at the center of it all, pulling every string, was Victoria Harrison. Not her late husband, not Marcus Webb, Victoria. She had been running the criminal side of the business for over 2 decades, using legitimate shipping routes to move dirty money for cartels, corrupt politicians, and worse. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements, wire transfers, recorded conversations, photographs of meetings that never officially happened. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst was what Maya found in the final folder. It was labeled simply, MARCUS. Inside was a coroner's report. Official cause of death, myocardial infarction, heart attack. Attached to it was a toxicology report that had never been made public. Marcus Webb had been poisoned, a compound that mimicked heart attack symptoms, undetectable in standard autopsies. The only reason this report existed was because someone had paid a private lab to look deeper. Someone named A.H. Aryan Harrison. Maya's hands shook as she turned to the next page. It was a life insurance document. Marcus Webb had taken out a $50 million policy 6 months before his death. The beneficiary, Victoria Harrison. And the final document in the folder, the one that made Maya's blood run cold, was a photograph. Marcus Webb and Victoria Harrison, standing close, too close, his arm around her waist, her hand on his chest. They were lovers. Victoria had been having an affair with her husband's business partner. And when that became inconvenient, or maybe when Marcus threatened to expose the money laundering, she had him killed. Maya closed the folder. Her mother-in-law was a murderer. And if Aryan had discovered this, if he'd confronted her, threatened to go public, then his accident suddenly made a lot more sense. The first rays of dawn were creeping through the window. Maya gathered the most damning documents, hid them beneath the loose floorboard Aryan had mentioned in his letter, and returned everything else to the safe. Then she went to meet Daniel in the garden. The garden was beautiful in the early morning light, roses heavy with dew, hedges trimmed into geometric perfection, a fountain burbling softly at the center of it all. And Daniel, waiting on a stone bench, looking like he hadn't slept either. "You came," he said. "You have something to show me." He stood, gesturing for her to follow. "This way, quickly before the staff starts moving." They walked through the garden, past the fountain, past the roses, until they reached a small structure at the very edge of the property. A gardener's shed by the look of it. Old, forgotten. Daniel produced a key and unlocked the door. Inside was not gardening equipment. Inside was a shrine. Photographs of Aryan covered every wall, hundreds of them, from childhood to adulthood, newspaper clippings about Harrison Industries, printouts of social media posts mentioning his name. And in the center of it all, on a small table, was Aryan's wedding announcement. His wedding to Natasha. What the hell is this? Maya breathed. Natasha's private obsession. Daniel's voice was grim. She comes here every night, has for years, she never got over him leaving. Maya walked closer, examining the photographs. Some of them were intimate, Aryan sleeping, Aryan in the shower, Aryan changing clothes. Photos that could only have been taken without his knowledge. She was stalking him. She was obsessed with him. There's a difference. Daniel picked up a notebook from the table, flipping through pages covered in frantic handwriting. She convinced herself that Aryan loved her, that someone forced him to leave, that if she could just find him, bring him back, everything would go back to normal. Did she find him? Daniel was quiet for too long. Daniel, Maya grabbed his arm. Did Natasha find Aryan before he died? I don't know. His voice was barely a whisper. But 3 months before his accident, Natasha took a trip to New York. She told everyone she was visiting friends. But look, he pointed to a map pinned to the wall, red strings connecting various points. This is her research. She was tracking someone. And this, he tapped a pushpin stuck in Brooklyn, is exactly where your apartment was. Maya's world tilted. Natasha had found them. Natasha had known where Aryan was hiding. And 3 months later, Aryan was dead. Why are you showing me this? Maya's voice came out hoarse. Because I need you to understand what we're dealing with. Daniel turned to face her fully. My mother is dangerous. Natasha is unstable. And somewhere in this house is evidence that could bring them both down. His eyes burned with intensity. Aryan found it. That's why he ran. That's why he's dead. And if we're not careful, that's why you'll be next. Then help me. Maya grabbed his shoulders. Help me find the truth. Help me prove what they did. I'm trying, Daniel's voice cracked. But I need time, and I need you to play the part. The grieving widow, the naive outsider. Let them think they've won. Let them get comfortable. And then we burn it all down. Maya released him, stepping back, mind racing. Trust no one, Aryan had written. But sometimes you had to take risks. Fine, she said. I'll play along, but I want full access to the house. No locked doors, no restricted areas. My mother will never. Your mother doesn't have a choice. I'm the majority shareholder now. This is my house. Maya smiled grimly. It's time I started acting like it. Breakfast was a war conducted with silverware. Maya entered the dining room at precisely 8 o'clock, dressed in one of the expensive outfits she'd found hanging in her closet, clearly Victoria's attempt at controlling her appearance. The dress was beautiful, elegant, completely wrong for who Maya actually was. She wore it anyway. Armor came in many forms. Victoria was already seated, coffee in hand, reading the morning paper as if the world hadn't shifted on its axis overnight. Good morning, dear. I trust you slept well. Like the dead, Maya poured herself coffee. We need to talk about household arrangements. Victoria's eyebrow rose. Oh. I'll be taking over the master's suite on the 2nd floor. I'll need an office. The one with the bay windows in the east wing will do. And I want full access to all areas of the house, including the wine cellar, the basement archives, and whatever is behind the locked door at the end of the 3rd floor hallway. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Victoria set down her paper very, very slowly. The master suite is mine. Was yours. Maya sipped her coffee. I'm the majority shareholder now, Victoria. I own this house, every room, every brick. every secret hidden in the walls. She paused. Unless you'd prefer I conduct a full audit of the property, I'm sure there are fascinating things to discover. Something dangerous flickered behind Victoria's eyes. You're making a mistake. Probably, I seem to have a talent for that. Maya smiled sweetly. The master's suite by noon, please. I'll be in meetings with the legal team until then. She stood, taking her coffee with her, and walked out without looking back. Behind her, she heard Victoria's coffee cup shatter against the wall. The next 3 weeks were a master class in psychological warfare. Maya attended every board meeting, asked pointed questions, requested detailed financial reports. She smiled at Victoria across the dinner table every night while systematically dismantling her power base. She fired the household staff who reported directly to Victoria and hired her own people, vetted by James Peterson, the only person in this world she trusted completely. She moved into the master's suite and found 3 hidden cameras in the first hour. She left them in place but fed them false information. Staged phone calls, planted documents, manufactured drama. Let them watch. Let them think they knew her game. Meanwhile, she and Daniel met in secret, piecing together the puzzle Aryan had left behind. The evidence against Victoria was overwhelming but circumstantial. They needed something concrete, something that would hold up in court. The recordings, Daniel said one night, huddled in the garden shed. Aryan's notes mention recordings of conversations, but they're not in the safe. He must have hidden them somewhere else, somewhere only I would think to look. Maya racked her brain. Where would Aryan hide something precious? Where had he felt safest? And then it hit her. The butter chicken. It was absurd, ridiculous, but Aryan had always insisted on cooking butter chicken himself every Sunday without fail. He'd spend hours in the kitchen, preparing it exactly the same way every time. There used to be a recipe, Maya murmured. His grandmother's recipe, he said. He kept it in an old tin in our kitchen. You think he hid evidence in a recipe tin? I think Aryan was exactly the kind of person who would hide evidence in a recipe tin. The problem was, all of Maya's possessions from the Brooklyn apartment were in storage. She'd had everything packed up after Aryan's death, unable to face the memories. I need to go back to Brooklyn, she said. Daniel shook his head. You can't leave. They're watching you constantly, if you disappear for even a few hours. Then create a distraction. What kind of distraction? Maya thought for a moment, then she smiled. How do you feel about starting a fire? The next morning, a small blaze broke out in the East Wing kitchen. Nothing serious, just enough smoke to send the household into chaos. While everyone was focused on the commotion, Maya slipped out the back entrance, met the driver she'd hired privately, and was halfway to Brooklyn before anyone noticed she was gone. The storage unit was exactly as she'd left it, boxes stacked haphazardly, covered in dust, full of the life she'd shared with a man she'd never really known. Maya found the kitchen box, found the tin. Inside was the recipe, handwritten on yellowed paper in what she now recognized as Aryan's grandmother's handwriting. But beneath, the recipe was something else. A USB drive. Maya's hands trembled as she pocketed it. She was back at Harrison Manor before lunch, slipping through a service entrance, making her way to her office as if she'd never left. That night, she locked herself in and plugged the USB into her laptop. The first file was a video. Maya clicked play. And there was Victoria Harrison, sitting across a desk from a man Maya didn't recognize, discussing in clinical detail how to eliminate Marcus Webb without attracting suspicion. The compound is untraceable, the man was saying. It mimics natural heart attack symptoms. Even a detailed autopsy won't catch it. And the dosage. Dissolved in his evening whiskey, He won't taste a thing." Victoria smiled, cold, satisfied. "Do it." Maya stopped the video. Her hands were shaking so badly, she could barely navigate to the next file. It was another video, same office, same cold expression on Victoria's face. But this time, she wasn't talking about Marcus Webb. "Aryan has become a liability," Victoria said flatly. "He knows too much. He's asking too many questions. And now he's disappeared, which means he's planning something." "What do you want us to do?" Victoria's answer was simple, direct, devastating. "Find him, and when you do," she paused, straightening the papers on her desk as if discussing tomorrow's weather, "make it look like an accident." The screen went black. Maya sat in the silence of her office, tears streaming down her face, listening to the sound of her own heart breaking. Her husband had been murdered, and his mother had given the order. Somewhere in the house, a door slammed. Footsteps in the hallway, coming closer. Maya quickly ejected the USB, hiding it in the one place she knew no one would look, sewn into the lining of her bra. The door burst open. Victoria stood in the doorway, face contorted with rage. "You left the house today. It wasn't a question." "I needed some air." "Don't lie to me." Victoria stepped closer, and for the first time, Maya saw the monster beneath the polished surface. "I know what you're doing. I know what you're looking for. And I promise you, if you think you can come into my home and destroy everything I've built." "You mean everything you've stolen?" Maya stood, drawing herself up to full height. "Everything you've killed for." Victoria went still. "What did you just say?" "You heard me." The two women faced each other across the office, widow and murderer, prey and predator. Then Victoria smiled. It was the most terrifying thing Maya had ever seen. "Oh, my dear girl," she whispered, "you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." She turned and walked out, leaving the door open behind her. And Maya knew, with absolute certainty, that the clock had started ticking. Whatever was coming, it was coming soon. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat in the darkness of her office, USB drive pressed against her chest, listening to every creak and groan of the old house, waiting for footsteps that never came, waiting for the door to burst open, waiting for whatever Victoria was planning. But nothing happened. And somehow, that was worse. At dawn, she made a decision. She couldn't wait any longer. The evidence on that USB drive was enough to destroy Victoria, but only if it reached the right hands. Every hour she spent in this house was another hour for Victoria to eliminate her the same way she'd eliminated Aryan. Maya needed to move, now. She texted Daniel from a burner phone she'd purchased weeks ago. Garden, 30 minutes, emergency. Then she began to pack. Not everything, just the essentials, documents, cash, the USB drive still hidden in her clothes, a change of clothes, her passport. She was zipping the bag closed when her door swung open. Natasha stood in the doorway, still wearing last night's red dress, mascara smeared under her eyes, champagne bottle dangling from her fingers. "Going somewhere." Maya's heart stopped. "What are you doing here?" "I couldn't sleep." Natasha swayed into the room, her movements loose and unpredictable. "Kept thinking about Aryan, about you, about how unfair it all is." "Natasha." "He was supposed to marry me." Natasha's voice cracked. "We were supposed to have children, a life, a future, and then he just left, vanished, like I was nothing." Maya watched her carefully, one hand inching toward the letter opener on her desk. "I'm sorry that happened to you." "Are you?" Natasha laughed bitterly. "Are you really? Because from where I'm standing, you got everything I was promised. The money, the name, her voice broke. The chance to be loved by him." "Natasha, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know any of this existed." But he chose you. Tears were streaming down Natasha's face now. He chose you over me, over his family, over everything, and I need to know why. Maya hesitated. This woman had stalked her husband, had possibly played a role in his death, was clearly unstable, clearly dangerous. But she was also in pain. Real, raw, devastating pain. I don't know why, Maya said softly. I've asked myself that question every day since I found out the truth. Why me? Why did he give up everything for a waitress from Brooklyn? Natasha stared at her, waiting. The only answer I have is, he wanted to be free. Maya sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. He wanted a life where no one expected anything from him, where he could just be Aryan, not the CEO, not the heir, not Victoria's son, just a man. And I couldn't give him that. No, Maya met her eyes. You couldn't, because you loved what he represented, not who he was. Natasha flinched like she'd been slapped. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Natasha laughed, a broken, hollow sound. You're right. She took a swig from the champagne bottle. God, you're absolutely right. I loved the Harrison name, the money, the power. I loved being the future Mrs. Harrison. She paused. I never bothered to love Aryan. Maya watched her carefully. Natasha, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. What? 3 months before Aryan died, you went to Brooklyn. You found us. Natasha went very still. Did you tell Victoria? The silence stretched. Natasha's hand tightened around the bottle. Natasha, please. I didn't know. Her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't know what she would do. I thought if she knew where he was, she'd bring him home. Convince him to come back, I thought. You thought you'd get another chance. Natasha nodded miserably. Maya closed her eyes. So there it was, the missing piece. Natasha had found them, told Victoria, and 3 months later, Aryan was dead. Natasha hadn't pulled the trigger, but she'd loaded the gun. I'm sorry. Natasha was crying openly now. I'm so sorry. I didn't know she would, I never thought. But you suspected. Maya's voice was cold. After he died, after the accident, you must have suspected. Natasha didn't answer. She didn't have to. Get out. Maya. Get out of my room, Natasha. Now. Natasha stumbled toward the door, then paused, looking back with red-rimmed eyes. For what it's worth, she whispered, I really did love him, in my own way. Your way got him killed. Natasha flinched. Then she was gone, the door clicking shut behind her. Maya grabbed her bag and moved. Daniel was waiting in the garden, packing beside the fountain. What's happening? Your text said emergency. We need to go, now. Maya grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the back gate. Victoria knows I'm onto her. Natasha just confessed she's the one who told Victoria where Aryan was hiding. Daniel's face went pale. Then we're out of time. I have the evidence. Videos of Victoria ordering Marcus Webb's murder. Videos of her ordering, Maya's voice caught. Ordering Aryan's death. It's all on a USB drive. Then we need to get it to the FBI. Today. That's where we're going. I have a contact, an agent who worked with Aryan years ago before he disappeared. He's been investigating Victoria's money laundering for a decade. He'll know how to use this. They reached the gate. Daniel punched in the code, and it swung open. Freedom was 50 feet away. And that's when the black SUVs appeared. 3 of them, screeching to a halt in the driveway, blocking any escape. Men in dark suits poured out, moving with military precision. Run, Daniel said. I'll hold them off. No, Maya grabbed his arm. We go together or not at all. Maya. I'm not losing anyone else. The men surrounded them. One of them tall, broad-shouldered, with the cold eyes of someone who had killed before and would kill again, stepped forward. "Mrs. Rahman," his voice was flat, professional. "Mrs. Harrison would like a word." "I'm sure she would." "This isn't a request." Maya looked at Daniel. He looked back at her. Then, with perfect synchronization, they bolted. Maya sprinted toward the garden wall, Daniel right behind her. She'd mapped escape routes her first week here, old habits from a childhood spent in neighborhoods where knowing how to run was survival. The wall was 12 feet high, but there was a tree nearby, branches hanging low. She jumped, grabbed, pulled herself up. Behind her, she heard shouting. A scuffle, Daniel's voice raised in anger. She looked back. They had him, 2 men pinning him to the ground, a third pressing a gun to his head. "Climb down slowly, Mrs. Rahman," the leader's voice carried across the garden, "or Mr. Harrison's brains become part of the landscaping." Maya froze. Everything she'd worked for, everything Aryan had died for, it was all on that USB drive pressed against her chest. If she escaped, she could bring down Victoria, avenge Aryan, end the Harrison legacy of blood and corruption. But Daniel would die. Aryan's brother, the only person in this family who had shown her kindness. Maya thought about her husband, about the letter he'd left her, about his words. "Fight for what's yours." She'd thought he meant the money, the evidence, the justice. But maybe, just maybe, he'd meant something else. Family. Maya climbed down from the tree. "Smart choice," the leader gestured, and 2 men grabbed her arms, forcing her toward the house. "Mrs. Harrison is waiting in the study." They dragged her through the garden, through the back entrance, through the halls she'd started to think of as her own. Daniel was brought along behind her, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. The study doors opened. Victoria sat behind a massive mahogany desk, looking every inch the queen of her corrupted empire. Natasha stood beside her, face pale, hands trembling. And seated in the chair across from Victoria, smiling pleasantly, was a face Maya recognized from the photograph in Aryan's safe. The man with cold eyes. The man who was supposed to be dead. Marcus Webb. "Mrs. Rahman," he said, "we finally meet." Maya's mind raced, trying to process the impossible. "You're dead," the coroner's report. "Was fabricated." Marcus stood, adjusting his cuffs. "A useful fiction that allowed me to disappear, to watch from the shadows, to wait." "Wait for what?" "For this moment." He gestured at the room, at Maya, at everything. "For the final piece to fall into place." Victoria rose from her chair, moving to stand beside Marcus. And the way they moved, in sync, comfortable, intimate, told Maya everything she needed to know. "You've been working together this whole time." "Darling, we've been together for 30 years. Victoria smiled coldly. "My husband was a means to an end, a fortune to be acquired, a name to be used." She glanced at Marcus with something that might have been affection. "Marcus has always been my true partner." "Then why fake his death?" "Because Aryan was getting suspicious." Marcus's smile faded. "Your husband was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. He'd started asking questions, following money trails, getting dangerously close to the truth." "So you killed him." "We removed a threat." Victoria's voice was ice. "Just as we're about to remove another one." Maya felt hands grab her arms, holding her in place. "The USB drive, Mrs. Rahman." Marcus extended his hand. "We know you have it, we know what's on it, and we know you haven't had a chance to send it to anyone yet." Maya said nothing. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Victoria stepped closer. "Give us the drive and we'll make your death quick, painless, a tragic accident just like your husband's." "And if I refuse?" Victoria smiled. "Then we start with Daniel, slowly, and you watch every moment." Maya looked at Daniel. He shook his head fractionally, Don't do it, his eyes said. Don't give them anything. But Maya wasn't looking at him for permission. She was looking past him, at the window behind Victoria's desk. At the red and blue lights flickering in the distance. Getting closer. You know what's funny? Maya's voice was steady. You spent so much time watching me, you forgot to watch yourselves. Victoria frowned. What are you talking about? The videos on that USB drive. I watched them last night. Then I sent copies to every major news outlet in the country, to the FBI field office in Manhattan, and to a lovely investigative journalist named Sarah Chen who's been trying to expose your money laundering operation for years. The color drained from Victoria's face. You're bluffing. Am I? Maya smiled. Check your email, check the news, go ahead, I'll wait. Marcus grabbed his phone, fingers flying across the screen. His expression, when he looked up, told Maya everything. She's not bluffing. His voice was hollow. It's everywhere, every news site, every channel, they have everything. The sirens were louder now, closer. Victoria turned on Maya, rage twisting her features into something inhuman. You stupid little. My husband was right about one thing. Maya cut her off. I am stronger than I look, and I don't make the same mistake twice. The study doors burst open. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Victoria screamed as she was forced to the ground. Marcus tried to run and was tackled before he made it 3 steps. And through it all, Maya stood perfectly still, watching justice finally arrive. The next few hours were chaos. Statements, interrogations, evidence processing. A parade of agents and lawyers and officials, all wanting a piece of the Harrison empire as it crumbled. Maya sat in the back of an ambulance, blanket around her shoulders, watching it unfold. Daniel found her there, a bandage over his forehead, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. How did you know? He asked, sitting beside her. How did you know to send the files before she caught you? Maya pulled out her phone, showed him the scheduled emails, set up at 3 a.m., timed to send at precisely 7 o'clock. I didn't trust myself to escape, she said quietly. So I made sure the truth would, even if I couldn't. Daniel was silent for a long moment. Aryan would be proud of you. Maya's eyes burned. I hope so. I know so. Daniel reached over and squeezed her hand. What happens now? Now, Maya looked at the Harrison Manor, lit up with flashing lights, crawling with federal agents. Now I sell this monument to corruption and use the money to do something good. Fund domestic violence shelters. Start a foundation for women in poverty. Maybe finally get that law degree I always wanted. And the Harrison name. Dies with Victoria. Maya stood, letting the blanket fall. The empire is finished, but maybe something better can grow from the ashes. She started walking toward the car that would take her away from this place forever. Then she stopped and turned back. Daniel, there's something I never told you. What? In his letter, Aryan asked me to fight for what was mine. I thought he meant the money, the evidence. She smiled softly. But I think he meant you, his little brother, the only person in that family who ever really loved him. Daniel's eyes glistened. You're welcome at my table any time, Maya said. Whatever that table ends up looking like. She walked away, leaving the Harrison legacy burning behind her. 6 months later, Maya stood at the edge of a cliff in Maine, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and crimson. In her hand was a small urn, simple, unadorned. Aryan's ashes. She'd kept them in storage for 2 years, unable to let go, unable to say goodbye. But now, finally, she was ready. I found the truth, she said softly. I found your killers, I made them pay. She paused, tears sliding down her cheeks. I hope that's enough. I hope you're at peace now. The wind picked up, as if answering. I'm going to be okay, Maya continued. It took me a while to believe that, but it's true. The foundation is up and running. We've helped 300 women this year alone. Daniel's working with me. Turns out he's actually a decent human being when he's not surrounded by monsters. She laughed softly. And I'm going to law school in the fall. Can you believe it? Your waitress wife becoming a lawyer. She wiped her eyes. I wish you could see it. I wish you could be here. The sun was almost gone now, slipping beneath the horizon. Maya opened the urn. I love you, she whispered. I always will. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for giving me a chance at this life. She tilted the urn, and the ashes caught the wind, scattering over the water like stardust. For a long moment, Maya just stood there, watching her husband become part of the sea and the sky and the eternal sunset. Then she turned and walked back toward the car, where Daniel was waiting. Ready? He asked. Maya looked back one last time at the ocean, at the place where Aryan would rest forever. Yeah, she said softly. I think I finally am. She got in the car. They drove away together, toward a future that Aryan had given everything to protect. And somewhere in the fading light, Maya could have sworn she heard his voice on the wind. I'm proud of you. She smiled. The end.